Sure. Yeah, just going over. Okay. The Economic Development, Tourism, and Cultural Initiatives Advisory Committee meeting is now called to order. Roll call has been taken. Prior to considering our items on the agenda, I'll go over some rules of procedure. This meeting is held in a hybrid format in accordance with the electronic participation policy for virtual meetings. The full corporate policy 050 regarding electronic virtual meetings is available online for review. All cameras for committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. Members of the committee shall indicate they wish to speak by raising their hand. Members who are present in person will be given opportunity to speak first, followed by virtual participants. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the result of the vote. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw apply. Moving on to number 2. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for any of the items listed on the agenda? Okay, seeing no hand, we'll move on. We have one presentation on our agenda today. Presentations are only permitted to be 10 minutes, inclusive of questions, but our presentation today covers a lot of material. So if there is no objection, I would suggest that we waive the rules. Seeing no objection, we'll move forward with the presentation. I would ask Danette Dalton and Winona Mendes to present their presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, folks, for having us here tonight and to allow this time for this presentation. Just a little bit of context before we dive into the presentation. The Employer One project is a research-based project focusing on employers in the Grand Erie region. And what we're doing here tonight is just focusing in on the results from a Brantford perspective. And the survey was actually undertaken in January of 2023. Historically, for many years now, we have been undertaking this particular research project called Employer One. And typically it is conducted in January. And we've analyzed the feedback that we've received and have provided some of the highlights on our website, which you can also refer to tonight, or any time that you need additional information. Please feel free as well to reach out to us. But we're just going to present to you tonight again some of the Brantford highlights. And I guess this would be an appropriate time for me to throw it over to Winona, who will run through some of the highlights for you. And then we have a quick commercial at the very end of our presentation to provide you as well regarding another project that we just wanted to bring your attention to. So thanks again, everybody, and over to you, Winona.
Thank you, Danette. Can we go over to the next slide? So just as a refresher, my name is Winona. I am the research lead at the Workforce Planning Board of Grand Erie. As part of that, I do develop and run the Employer One survey every year. And as Danette mentioned, this is the 10th year in which it's running. So it's been exciting to be able to see trends over time. And I'm going to be sharing some of those with you today. Next slide, please. So to start off with, just for some context, about 34% of all businesses in the Grand Erie region, which is the region we serve, encompassing Brantford, Six Nations, New Credit, and the counties of Haldimand, Norfolk, and Brant, 34% of those are Brantford businesses. And we got about 36% of respondents to our survey from the city of Brantford. So in terms of representation, props to your EgDev teams and to everybody else that was involved in promoting the survey. We certainly do feel that the city of Brantford is well represented, with 90 businesses providing their input on the trends that I'm about to share with you. Next slide, please. So a quick look at responses based on sector and size. Your top sectors in the city of Brantford, based on number of employees, are manufacturing, which you can see is very well represented over here. Healthcare, social assistance, retail trade, construction, and educational services. So you'll see that healthcare and construction are pretty well represented. We didn't get as much of a response from retail trade or educational services, but a lot of the trends that I'll be highlighting today are mirrored in the responses from those sectors across the Grand Erie region. And you can see on the right of your screen that we have decent representation from businesses of all sizes. That's the graph at the bottom of your screen, and businesses from different types of sectors as well. So we have a considerable number of not-for-profits and government represented in this survey. So bigger businesses like the school boards, the corporation of the city of Brantford, Brant Community Healthcare System, and a few other big manufacturing and construction facilities are all very well represented within this survey. Next slide, please. One of the big questions that we've asked every single year since we started the Employer One survey 10 years ago is, how would you rate the availability of qualified workers in your region? And you can see the chart on the right of your screen shows a very clear decline in availability of qualified workers across Grand Erie as a whole. So that's the only data point over here that is showing you all of Grand Erie. And you can see that when we started in 2014, it was about 50% that rated the availability as excellent or good. And this year it was down to 30%. Now, on the left of your screen, you see City of Brantford specific results, and you can see we're doing marginally better at 34%, rating it either excellent or good, but still considerably lower than when we started recording responses for this question several years ago. Next slide, please. And then the Employer One survey gets into things like anticipated hiring, as well as retention and separations and that sort of thing. So first we ask, do you anticipate hiring in 2023? And about 91% of Brantford businesses said yes, they anticipate hiring, which it can be a good sign, but it's really important to understand why they anticipate hiring. So for a good quarter of businesses, including many of manufacturing and construction businesses, the reason was expansion, which is always a wonderful sign. That's what you want to hear. But for a good 60% of businesses, the main reason that they anticipated hiring new employees was to fill a vacancy or a replacement. And that is slightly higher than Grand Erie as a whole. And we found that this was particularly true of accommodation and food service businesses, as well as the healthcare and retail trade sectors. So definitely sectors to focus in on in terms of supporting hiring. Less common reasons cited by Brantford employers included requirements for someone with a specific skill set, retirements, or seasonal needs. Next slide, please. Next, we ask employers if they have any hard-to-fill positions. And you can see over here that 82% of Brantford businesses said, yes, they do have hard-to-fill positions. This is, again, slightly higher than the Grand Erie average of 77%. And when looking at the reasons, we did see that many of them are very similar to those that we're seeing across Grand Erie. But we did see a higher proportion of Brantford businesses cite reasons such as not enough applicants, lack of motivation, attitude, or interpersonal skills amongst candidates, or candidates just simply not showing up for interviews or responding to job offers. The one area where Brantford had a considerable advantage was accessibility. So we found that almost no businesses in Brantford had any concerns about employees being able to get to their location, because public transit is a little bit more accessible in the city than in surrounding counties. Next slide, please. Then we ask about separations. Separations are essentially when an employee leaves an employer. And we found that about 81% of City of Brantford businesses experienced separations in 2022. This is again a little bit higher than the Grand Erie average of 75%. But we do see that relative to the rest of Grand Erie, retirements are generally lower in the city of Brantford. In Brantford, almost 2/3 of businesses said that the reason they had experienced separations between employees and the company was because people were quitting their organization. And based on other research we've done, some of which I'm excited to share a little bit with you later, we know that pay is a huge driver for this. People are quitting because they are seeking better wages, as are other quality of work factors like career prospects and opportunities to grow. So this is something that we really try to focus in on as the Workforce Planning Board of Grand Erie, because we understand that this is not sustainable. So we've been doing a lot of research to understand that better, and I'm excited to share some of that at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. Next up, we ask about retention, and this year specifically, we asked if retention has become more difficult since pre-pandemic, because we understand that the landscape of employment has changed pretty drastically. So we wanted to frame that in the context of COVID and how that's affected the workforce. And the survey is telling us that for the overwhelming majority of businesses, employee retention has become more difficult since pre-pandemic. And a lot of the reasons that I cited earlier show up in the employer's responses. So their inability to offer competitive wages, undesirable work hours, and insufficient opportunities to advance or develop within the business are reasons why employers are finding it difficult to retain their employees, and potentially reasons why employees are leaving Brantford businesses to go elsewhere to find work. Next slide, please. When we asked City of Brantford businesses if they if they've experienced any challenges related to hiring and retention, we found that only 1% of businesses said they had not experienced any hiring and retention challenges. So overwhelmingly, businesses are saying that the gaps that they're experiencing in terms of hiring and retention are affecting their business in very significant ways. So top ones include increased workload for existing staff, reduced productivity, and negative impact on customer service, and the list goes on. Next slide, please. And you can see that displayed over here in some of the additional comments that employers left for us at the end of the survey. So I'll read some of them out for you. One employer said, when a position is filled, they often leave within 6 months for a bigger city that offers higher pay. Another said that higher stress levels on existing workforce does increase workload and more mistakes are made. And another employer said increased workload on existing staff leads to reduced responsiveness to customers, which can lead to either customers going elsewhere or just stretches out the schedule so that the company is less effective or productive. So you can see that this has pretty big impacts on the region. And so it's important from an economic development perspective to try and understand where the supports are most required and what supports are required and how we can develop projects and partnerships to be able to support some of that. Next slide, please. In terms of, sorry, I think you went the other way.
Is that the last one?
Yeah, the next one.
This one? Is this the one you're?
The one after this, the one on mental health. Yeah, thank you. So we also asked businesses this year about whether or not they've experienced an increase in mental health leave amongst employees. This is something that we heard a lot about anecdotally, and so we wanted to see if the data supported that or what the data was saying about it. And we found that about 31% of Brantford employers were saying that they had experienced an increase in mental health leave. And this is a little bit higher again than results from across Grand Erie. So this was particularly true of healthcare and food service workers, but also a considerable number of manufacturing and retail trade businesses that said they experienced mental health leave. And of course, it's really important to know and understand that these sectors are experiencing these challenges and to try and support them. But I also want to point out the sort of invisible sectors that you don't that are not captured in the data over here. So sectors like construction and agriculture in particular, where there's a culture of you showing up to work regardless of your mental health, and how that affects the people that are working within the sector is definitely something that we need to be considering. Next slide, please. Lastly, this year's Employer One survey did do a little bit of a focus on tech needs. So every year we do community consultations, and as part of that, we try and understand what specific topics or areas are of interest to the community to better understand, so they can support it. And last year during our local labor market planning consultations, we learned that tech needs were of interest to a lot of our community partners and government. So we asked businesses about their tech needs, and here's an area where we see Brantford employers do considerably better than all of Grand Erie. So you'll see over here that Brantford employers are doing are faring better in terms of having IT support. So it's just about 8% for Brantford businesses compared to 20% across the region. Many more much fewer are unsure of what their cybersecurity needs are, and also fewer said that they do not have the time or resources to focus on cybersecurity. So I think that's an area in which a lot of businesses do feel well supported. But of course, for that small percentage of businesses that do need supports, that's something that community organizations and governments can certainly help with. So that's a quick summary of the Employer One 2023 results for the city of Brantford. Next slide, please. We do have results for the entire Grand Erie region up on our website right now, so they can be accessed via the link that's in this PowerPoint that's been shared around already. And it really does display the changes in how businesses are faring over the last little bit. So that kind of research has spurred a lot of the other work that we do. So I'll pass it over to Danette to talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Ramona. Yes, and we do welcome you to check out, again, the link that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation and that you see here on the screen. There are some highlights on the website that reflect what we talked about here tonight. And if there is any further detail that you wish to dive into, let us know and we can see how we can help you. If you can go to the next slide, please. And this begins our quick commercial break here. We just wanted to bring to your attention, it's that time of year again for us where we are doing local labor market planning engagement. We typically do this in the last quarter of the calendar year. For the document that is presented to the community in March of every year. So the document that you see on the screen here is the most current local labor market plan, which can be accessed as well from our website. Again, it's an overview of market conditions in all of Grand Erie. But we can do a deeper dive into Brantford specifically. So if there is additional information that you require, again, just let us know. Next slide, please. So just some context into the local labor market planning process very quickly. We are one of 26 workforce planning boards that are funded across the province, primarily by the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. We each have our own jurisdiction. We've talked about that quite a bit here this evening. We serve Brantford Brant, Six Nations, New Credit, and Haldimand and Norfolk counties. And as part of our funding agreement with the ministry, we are required to report on the labor market conditions, and we do that through the local labor market plan. We obviously have a lot of access to a lot of data, and we help that helps guide us in the work that we do for this particular report. But also we do engagements in the community. So we hope to be able to come back in a couple of months and do another presentation with this group and get a little bit of feedback if that's possible. But I'll follow up with Sarah and her team to see if that's possible in the future. Next slide, please. Yes, so I think I'll throw this over now to Winona. Did you want to continue on from here?
certainly I won't spend too much time on it, but I just want to showcase the breadth of information that is in our local labor market plan. So of course, we are always your number one source of labor market information. If you ever want to find out anything specific, I'm more than welcome inquiries to the Workforce Planning Board. But there is a wealth of information that is already contained neatly within this document and is updated annually, like Danette mentioned. So it includes content like data on labor force population, employees by sector, education, skills and training, labor demand, lots and lots of business counts are just business trends data. It includes spotlights on some of the biggest industries in our region. So these are 2-page extensive highlights that contain all kinds of data sets that help tell the picture of what those sectors are, how those sectors are faring in a given year. We include a few occupational spotlights, and then we have the Grand Erie Workforce Gateway highlights, which is a compilation of many different resources that exist within the community that are all neatly put together in the local labor market plan and then also highlighted on our website in other formats. So we have employment and community resources, we have COVID-19 recovery resources that we developed, and then we also highlight things like our project review from the past year and our upcoming action plan. So I won't spend too much time on either of those right now, but I do want to highlight one project that we're wrapping up right now. Over the past year and a half, many community partners and government agencies and employers came together to support a research study that we conducted on quality of work. So if we can jump to the next slide, please. The study gathered insights from local employers, employees, and job seekers on 6 different dimensions that we categorized as being under the umbrella of quality of work. So everything from income and benefits to career prospects, work intensity, working time quality, skills and autonomy, and social environment. And what this project was designed to do, or what our goal was to understand where the gaps existed, what specific demographics needed to be supported, and suggesting partnerships and projects that could help support filling those gaps. So I'm happy to report that the research and analysis phase is completed. Report is scheduled to be launched either late this week or early next week. And we are going to be hosting a webinar to highlight the results, as well as local employers that are showcasing best practices in terms of supporting their employees in all of these different ways. So that webinar is going to be held on September 27th, and we can send you a Zoom link to register once that goes live in a couple of days. But really, this is an excellent opportunity to find ways in which you can support the system. So you can see from my Employer One results presentation that there are clearly big gaps here. Employers are struggling in many different ways. And this study really helped us understand where we can focus our efforts to support some of those businesses. So I invite you all to that, and we'll share a link when that is available, but keep an eye out for that report. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you guys all for listening. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And this is our wonderful team.
Thank you, Winona. Yes, if there's any questions or feedback from anybody, we're happy to entertain those now, if that's okay with city staff. Oh, Councillor Hunt. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so through the chair to you, Danette or Winona, a couple of things when I reviewed the document in advance of the meeting. I'm a big proponent as to what can we do as a city or city council to support our local businesses. So I'm kind of excited about the quality of work study. Just understanding that I think what you've tried to do in that is address what it is that we can do to support businesses, specifically those that are struggling with
Retention and so on.
Recruitment and retention. And I'll tell you, as a business owner, I'm one of them. So
okay.
So I'm very interested in that. But I'm wondering if we have any kind of a statistic of the percentage of population that commutes elsewhere to work instead of working in our community?
We do. Yeah.
So the answer is yes, but the specific data for Brantford is still on its way to us. We do have a baseline or just like very basic information that's published by Statistics Canada through the 2021 census. So I can find that stat and send it to you. But right now, the data that's published online is relatively limited. The workforce planning boards do place a custom data order for a very large amount of census data that's broken down in various ways. So once we get our hands on that, we will have much more detailed data on those commuting patterns and movements, and we're hoping that we can publish some of that in this year's local labor market plan. So there'll certainly be something included in there, but I can also send you a quick email or pass along the information that is available right now on the Statistics Canada website.
Yeah, I probably about 3 hours ago was on a meeting regarding transportation and the fact that there is a significant amount of our population that needs to access various highways because they're commuting. And the percentage that I was looking at in that meeting this afternoon was 17%, which is a significant amount of our population. If 17% of our population is commuting elsewhere to work, it makes me, and as somebody that commuted for years, makes me wonder how we can make working in Brantford more attractive to those people that are commuting elsewhere. So that's probably big sky thinking, but it's there's a quality of life issue.
That's right.
When it comes to commuting, and so yes, how can we make living and working in Brantford more attractive?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, we've
just
got to have this conversation with you, and we are anxious for the updated census information. Fortunately, it's been a bit delayed, as Winona has pointed out, and we do hope that we can share this information with the next local labor market plan. So that'll be published in March of 2024. But we'll see what we can find for you now, and get something as current as possible to you. So yeah, thanks for that feedback. We hope to continue the conversation after the Quality of Work webinar and hope that you can attend. If you haven't received the invite, please let us know. We'll make sure you get a copy of the invitation.
I haven't, but if you could tell me what it is that
next week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, we've sent out
Okay.
2 different invitations. One already went out, the next one is coming next week. So we'll make sure that you're on the list before it does go out. So thank you.
Good. Thanks, Danette.
Thank you. Sorry, Winona.
Just a quick glance at the census data that's on Statistics Canada right now tells me that just about 63% of Brantford employees or residents, commute within their census division, so within Brantford for work. So that 17% that you cited is likely even higher now. I'm assuming that number came from 2016 data, possibly, because every year the census, every 5 years when the census is updated, we see some of these massive changes, and this is certainly one of them.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Thank you. There are no items for consideration. We'll move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Can I please have a mover and seconder to place the minutes on the floor? Mover, Jamie, seconder, Mandy. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, I just had a question around the roll call. So Ray Petro was in attendance at the last meeting. His name is not on the roll call, and I just wanted to clarify at that point he was a city staff person. So I'm not sure if he was in attendance as a city staff person, and if perhaps Sarah can can clarify that he's actually not on the committee anymore.
Yes, I can clarify that. Through the chair to Councillor Hunt, the last meeting was the first meeting that Ray Petro attended as a city staff member, so he had resigned from the committee at this time. So that's correct. It should be updated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So all those in favor of adopting the amended minutes? Those opposed? Okay, I think the motion is carried and that's good. Okay, there are no resolutions. It's very good. And also no notices of motion. So the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.